What's up, boys? We got our we're doing the Listener League podcast number 11 after a 2-week hiatus. It's been lazy the last few weeks, man. This shit is a lot of work, man. Just every week committing to it. So that's okay. Sonny, you made this one happen. So you get the point, my son. Sonny's back with us. We got Dr. Ghuman back with us, and we finally got the hottest ticket in Edmonton, Robert.
Robert, to be on. Nice to be on.
What's going on?
It's not my thing. It's not my thing, but I'll dabble with you guys for a bit.
It's COVID, man. We got to try new things. Everybody's, experimenting. Right, Sonny?
It's easier off the record.
Yeah,
right?
he's...
I mean, there's new things I want to say off the record.
Gaks became like a carpenter, basement builder. Now he's got to be a content builder, Joe. You know, COVID expansions.
That's
Okay,
it.
let's get you some hits.
There we go. So yeah, we just let's start with the update on the farmers protest. I think everyone's been pretty much following it. You know, it's day to day. Shit's changing. Like one day something happens, next day something happens. The next day you're like, oh fuck it, I don't even want to pay attention. Next day fucking Riri shows up, and then full support.
The game.
Yeah, but Sonny, you were talking about that Russell Brand video. I think you've watched it, and you even read up on the Modi speech that he referenced. What was because that was pretty good. Like even having Russell Brand involved and him starting to talk about it, like it's catching attention in the West. So maybe just touch on that.
And Arj, if I missed it, you jump into I mean, the main thing is you have a guy that has 2.2 million followers on Instagram. Well-known guy, so the second he posts that, it's gonna get a lot of eyes. And then the guy is like super smart, right? So he brought like a kind of a different perspective to it. At the end of the day, it's good to shine light on India, but his whole thing was about like the decentralization of power and how, whether you agree with you side with the farmers, you side with the government, or you side with the billionaires backing it, like too much power in the hands of a few is like a bad thing. And in all these examples across history, it's always like the same people that suffer, right? Like, and he's kind of saying that like nobody would be complaining if you provided solutions to help these people and modernized farming at the same time. The woman was like very against like chemicals and all of that. But that was kind of his central thing. And then goes on for a while. But the interesting thing was he references this speech at the World Economic Forum in 2018 in Davos. And Modi talks about like the three greatest threats he sees, not just for India, but for mankind. And it's funny because he's called the farmers one of these. So the three things were climate change, terrorism, and the one that's really interesting is globalization, or like the resistance to globalization. So you hear him, we hear it all the time, him calling the farmers, these are terrorists. 1 week this is about Khalistan, 1 week this is about like Muslim separatists. They're trying to incite violence. Whatever the topic of the day is, he's just him and his propaganda bullshit artists are throwing that out. So that's funny that he's referencing that. And then the anti-globalization thing. So he actually went on and he talks about how the people that are resisting like connecting the globe are going to be a huge problem. And so he also tries to spin this as this is necessary for advancing India, which nobody's debating that. Like I think we said last time I was on, like India was at 58 billion for the agricultural industry, and that vastly underperforms. Nobody is debating that even the farmers have advocated for being more successful, but not at the expense of their livelihoods, right? So I don't. That's what.
Don't you're saying Modi was like talking about globalization? Who was he very close with? Trump. And what was Trump preaching the whole time? Anti-globalization,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's funny. Everyone just spins whatever narrative suits their their goal. Tomorrow he'll switch to
need for the moment.
exactly. It's ridiculous. But what was interesting about that, I don't know, Arjun, you heard it too.
Yeah.
He brought up Bill Gates and how they're essentially Vandana Shiva, who is the social activist. She's like famous in India, or environmental activist. Sorry, but she was talking about how like this Facebook and all these like the tech companies, they're mining or they're getting our data on its users, and now Bill Gates and these big corporations are data mining or whatever from farmers now, and they're trying to corporatize farming. And Sonny, you said that Bill Gates is the largest?
Yeah, like I read, and this was a couple weeks ago, and I will have to fact check it, but I remember seeing an article. I clicked through, and he's doing a lot has happened. He funded the COVID vaccine. You see all this good stuff that he's doing, like the pledge to give away all his money, all whatever. It's all good. And then, but I remember reading that their foundation had become the largest farmland owner in the U.S. And like I kind of never put the two and two together because you're so focused on what's happening in India, and then it's like Russell Brand's making fun of this, and it's like it's right. Like in Simpsons talked about this like years ago. It's like, of course, like Bill Gates being one of the world's richest person in North America, having all this farmland, of course it would be connected to Ambani Adani wanting the farmland in India. Like he's also heavily invested in Monsanto. He's one like so. And I don't know, like I would like to think that Bill Gates has like, I wouldn't go as far as saying like benevolent ambition, but like I would like to think that he's trying to help the world. But I don't know, right? Like it's when you.
I think he is, but his pockets are still getting deeper. I mean, just because it's going through a charity, I mean, it's a gray area.
No, but you say he is trying to do better, but then like he has to, like that guy's a smart man. He has to know that he's in what Monsanto does, how the effects it has in a place like India. Like he's got to be aware of this
somewhere, and he's profiting somewhere. Like that's the bottom line. Just going back to the Russell Brand video, like just talking about that a bit. There's so many interesting points he made. Like Bill Gates continues to
or her, right? That Vandana
that lady. She made good points, and Russell Brand Bill Gates continues to become this villain in today's society, being accused of things left, right, and center, But just back to the data mining with the farmers, it's so interesting. Like, it sounds like they're going to market it back to farmers. Like, we're going to give you information about what's the best time to plant, what the soil conditions are like, the acidity, right? What the climate's going to be like when it's rolling through, what the best things are to grow. So it sounds like all these like fantastic things. And I mean, apps like Google have incorporated things like that into our everyday lives, right? Like my calendar, my email, everything's on Google. But is the infrastructure even there in India to support that? Can everyone even afford that to that scale? I don't know, like what's going to happen with that. But you got to think these companies are profiting in some
100%.
way with this, right? And it's just so twisted to think that there's like forces like that are probably that have driven like hundreds of thousands of farmers to be like sleeping on the streets, right? Like as part of the entire package. If you take a step back and look at what's happening, it's frustrating.
It's scary too, like when you think about it, because it's like when nobody really talks about it because you start to sound like a conspiracy theorist. But like when you actually look at the numbers, it's like more like it's like 70% of the world's wealth is controlled by like less than 10% of the people, right? Yeah. And so when you start to look at it, and like her book was like the 1%, right? So in a lot of cases, when you look at the lobby groups and in like India, let's just focus on that. Like you got 2 billionaires that are, call a spade. They're calling the shots, right? Like they're pulling the strings behind the scenes, right?
Oh, yeah.
So 2 guys and their interests are making life miserable for close to 1 billion people. And so then by extension, if that's happening there, you'd be naive to think that if there's wealthier people in other parts of the world that it's not happening. So it's like that, and that's why I really want to read this book, because it's like again, it's money controls everything, right?
It is, and you talk, and like, so this is kind of going off topic, but like the centralization, well, it's not really off topic, it applies to this, like the centralization of power, right? It's happening in every areas. So it's happening in agriculture. It's happening in the banking sector, right? Like, and that's why you have these decentralized platforms. You can say like something like Bitcoin or like farming small and medium, like, you know, keeping that private to the smaller mid-sized farms. Like once everything gets concentrated, and now you're seeing it, like the wealth is getting concentrated in the hands of a few. They will control everything. And like people fucking like, oh, come back on WhatsApp to me. Like I get bitched at all the time. But I'm like, it's just like, you know, when you see, like if you're thinking of A&W Burger and you see the fucking ad show up on your, like, you know, your computer or your Instagram, you always see that. I've like changed my security settings on a lot of things and just like my privacy. Like I don't see those ads anymore. Like it's just, but it's that
Yeah, just on the topic of security and like what information you share is private or not, and back to the protest that Disha Ravi, a lady that got basically abducted and charged for nothing.
Climate activists.
Sounds like climate activists. It sounds like they had access to her like Google Docs.
Google provided that information to the Indian state.
Yeah,
how twisted
that's what
is
I heard.
that? Yeah.
You know, like and like the Twitter shutdowns, like they're lobbying Twitter. They shut down like what was 500 accounts. It's like it's messed up. And again, when you a month ago, 2 months ago, it was kind of conspiracy talk, like, oh, like Facebook's connected this way, Google, all this investment, but it's proving truer and truer and truer. And now Facebook, like, not allowing you to share news, like, it's like it very much reminds, like, for me, it reminded me of the I love Simpsons, like the Stonecutters, like they were like those guys, they all meet and like they just control the world, right? And then it's like they decide the way that it goes, and that's what's happening.
It's fucked up. Like yeah, you sound like, but you know what? I'm starting to think more and more. These aren't conspiracy theories. This is just the reality of the world, right? Like,
and then like Greta Thunberg shared that kit. So like that Poetic Justice Society, Joe and I were invited to go on like this thing, and it was like just like it was literally like sharing hashtags, accounts to tag, like the most benign thing in the world, like just like social media guide for idiots, right? Like they're trying to make this easy for people that like might not have English first language, you know, and this is like inciting, like equated with inciting terrorism and like
global conspiracy. That's Mo Dollywell from the Poetic Justice Foundation. So he's buddies with buddies of mine, and one of my buddies, his cousin. So this guy, they accuse him of, in the Hindustan Times, he's from Vancouver, runs, and he's doing this of what, paying Rihanna 2.2 million for that tweet. Like it's like,
yeah,
it's like,
then,
what?
And then like the absurdity of it, it's like okay, like everybody likes money, but you really think that Rihanna, whose net worth is close to $1 billion, is gonna like needs your 2.2 million bucks? And like it's just
fucked up.
Yeah,
it's
and
fucked
like
up.
And then like they're calling for Greta Thunberg like in India, like they want to charge her. It's just, but it in a way, like it's sad because it shouldn't have, like we've been talking about this for almost 3 months now, and it's just like picking up momentum. But it's like they should have been like, this is, again, we're being reactive, but like it's because people like Greta and Rihanna and now Russell are saying it, that now it's becoming part of everyday conversation again, right? And it's we've talked, like we were saying this when we met last time, Joe. It's like whether you think the laws are repealed or not, and if they are, great, but you know, we have to stay on top of it because it's just a matter of time before the next thing, right? And so this, more than anything, it's just been good from my eyes to see that the West is now somewhat aware of what can happen over there, and it just, attention has to stay on it.
But you know what's fucked? Like that stuff like that is happening. I don't know if you saw. There's a Spanish rapper. He's from Barcelona. If you heard in the last few days, so he had some lyrics. You know how they have the whole Catalan, the independence movement for Catalonia. So he's Catalan, and he wrote some lyrics about like he's talking about the Spanish royal family, and he said some stuff that would. The Spanish state has now said those are terrorism or inciting terrorism. Okay, so he locked himself up in a university. Like the state police, I think, went in, took him out, put him in jail. Now there's riots the last 2 nights because it's suppression of speech, right? You claim to be, and this is in Spain. So like this happens. It's happening more and more even here in like it's gonna so like if we don't pay attention to what's happening there, it's not like even maybe 20 years from now it could happen here right at our doors. So it's like you can't just fucking not worry about that just because it's over there right now, because it could happen here, right? It's happened in the past, and yeah, if you don't say anything, it's fucked up. Everything's fucked up right now. COVID's fucked up. Everything's fucked up. But I don't know, fucking. But like other than that, the protests, like they had that what's it called, the Maha Panchat in Barnala today. It was like what 250,000 people showed up in Punjab to show support. They're having them like there's more and more people joining like the coalition like across the country, so which is good. Like if I'm Modi, I'm worried now because it's not even a protest; it's like a revolution at this point. But like sitting here, we just gotta keep sharing. Like it gets tiring. Sonny, I mean, you were saying like it's like you're just like fuck, man. Why do I keep just sharing like nonstop? Is this even doing anything? But it's like it's doing something, right? Like fuck, you would think.
The fatigue is like it's real for sure, and like you start to wonder, like you're sharing it every day, like who's tuning you out, who's not. But again, it's what I said to Joe last time is like I'll be debating not doing it, and you'll see like it's something from the front line, and you're like, no, fuck that, like it has to be done.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy how many people are sharing stories. I think this is the first time that I'm unable to go through my Instagram stories. Like there's too many. It's like I'm not big on posting, but everybody's posting. I can't get through the posts. Like at some point you got to stop. Like how much time do you have in the day to go through everyone's stories? But everyone is sharing.
So you're aware of the situation, right? Like because of that, like it obviously helps, 100%. Right? Yeah,
it's definitely gaining momentum, and I mean I think Modi's probably going to realize that these farmers they're never going to go anywhere. They're never going to back down. They're going to stay there forever until they get to a point where it's agreeable. What they're looking for. I mean, I can't see them leaving. I mean, I know our people, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I think it's at this point, it's bigger than the farm laws now. Like we're seeing like picking up journalists, picking up, like, it's just picking up youth. Like it's just straight up human rights violations, like the propaganda that they're using. Like it's just bigger than the farm laws at this point. But I mean, fuck, it goes on.
Call centers turning into bot centers, and they're just spreading misinformation out there. It's crazy, and I mean that happens everywhere. That's happening in every country. I mean, we got that. Parties are getting.
So go ahead.
Political parties are getting elected through social media, like Russian influence on Facebook and how it skewed people's votes. Like it's crazy. It's just social media has turned into. It was amazing, and now like you see all the negative aspects of it as well.
And that's like what centralization of power, right? Facebook, fucking all these Google, like that's scary, man. Like they can like the U.S. elections and Russia pretty much essentially. I think I don't know how accurate that is, but like they're saying
no, no collusion. There's no collusion with Trump, in my opinion, but they definitely influence.
They can influence by buying
voters.
ads or just
influence voters. Yeah, 100%.
Even with sharing our stories,
so much misinformation out there.
Sometimes I wonder, like, if who sees my stories is also being controlled, right? Like it'd be so futile if as we're like sharing and like posting, if it's literally just us recirculating amongst us, our group of like 100, 200. But I guess it keeps us educated in Edmonton. But they could be controlling that too, right?
They do that.
Sonny was saying that his hashtags weren't getting.
Shadow.
I don't know. I don't think it was shadow banned, and like some of it was my error. But still, like at the end of the day, like some didn't see it. Like so, I made that video, and like I never really care, but I was looked at. I was like, weird. So I asked in like this one group chat of like my friends from Ontario. And they were like, what are you talking about? Like literally like, and they're like, yeah, it's like not on your page. And I'm like, it's literally like on my page right now. And like, so they had to like go to my Instagram, whatever the TV thing. And then, I mean, it definitely happens like that. It's like, again, it's scary.
It's fucked up, man. It's fucked up, but I don't know. Let's see how
they're censoring people now. So it's like, I mean, certain people need to be censored, but once you start censoring people, where does it stop? Like, who decides who gets censored?
Okay, so here's a question. Just everyone's opinion on it. I'm just curious to know. Like, you know how, like, people say, okay, I'm taking a little bit too far with trying to get the whole privacy thing. And I know you can't do everything, right? I have Facebook, I have Instagram, I'm on it. I need to use it. We have to use these tools, whether it's for work or just staying connected with people. But like, I don't know, as your guys is like, I guess how you take social media or how you like look at something, even like a smart TV. I was thinking of a smart TV. I'm like, could you get a TV that's not smart? Like I would pay to get a non-smart, like a dumb TV, right? Like just because I'm conscious of these things now. But like, how are you guys when it comes to these things? It was to start with you, Gaks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big tech guy, so I mean, I love all the advances in technology, but there's probably, I mean, let's just say I'm not typing anything out that's incriminating myself. Yeah, at
No,
this point.
I'm not saying that, but like just the thought that somebody, it's not like, I don't think any of us are like, doing something like that's illegal, but like, right? But it's just the idea knowing that somebody is taking all your information. So if you had a private conversation, who knows who the fuck has it or who's taking that information or what they're doing without your permission at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, so, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, there's not really much going on. Like
Yeah.
Who am I? Like, who cares about my conversation?
Yeah, I
Like,
see. I think Gaks, like basically
I'm
what
not
you're
at that
saying.
level. I'm not at the level where it's a big concern of mine. Like,
Yeah.
No,
it's okay.
but
Like, if
but
someone's
don't
reading
you
my stuff, if someone's feeding me ads, if you know, and I don't mind like certain things like ads and this and that. Like, I don't mind it. Like, I'm okay with it. Like,
no, but don't you
I'm
think
looking.
don't you think so? Like at the end of the day, if you show me something constantly over time, even and I start off by maybe not liking it or whatever, or like even just become so numb to something like, but like somebody who's got that information about me can keep putting it in front of me, where at over time it will have an influence on me, right? It could be for a positive, it could be to the direction that person wanted, like these big corporations, whatever they're selling. I'm not saying it's all like I like seeing some ads of shit I like too. Yeah, like, but like just that makes me uncomfortable because it comes down to this whole thing now. Like I don't know what Facebook's doing. Like they have, collecting information on the other side of the world, what they're using it for. It's not my permission. Like I'm essentially contributing to this problem if I'm not
I
conscious
I'd
or
be
aware.
I'd be more concerned if I wasn't informed about it. I mean, you know about it. You know it's happening. You're informed about it. If I didn't know this was happening and all this data was being collected about me, that would be something of concern. I
Fair
also have
enough.
an issue if I'm having a conversation on my with somebody face to face and something shows up on my phone. I do have an issue with that. That to me is next
But
level. Being able to tap into
initially,
your microphone or camera, like that's next level. I don't agree with that stuff.
yeah, but now we know what happens, right? Think
Yeah.
back to when you realized that your Google Home Mini is recording everything that's being said at your house, right? When I found out, I was like, "Fuck, man! Like, what the hell?" Right? I'm like turning this shit off, unplugging it. But like, what am I gonna do? But ultimately, yeah, it comes down to that. Like you're not doing anything that's like gonna seem
No.
shady or anything, right? But yeah, I know it does make you feel a little uneasy knowing that like the targeted ads, like ads, it's not like driving by a billboard, which
It's
is like
creepy as fuck.
semi-targeted, right? Which is like sort of random. It's like no, it's like targeted for you. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't come to a decision on it totally. Like it's been positive at some points. Like it's reminded me like, oh yeah, shit, like I need to buy this, or oh yo, I should look to see if I can get cheap tickets to the Oilers game, right? Like StubHub ads come up all the time. But at the same time, yeah, it is weird. But man, like so much of our lives are now so intertwined with this. Like for me, my work calendar and so many things are just tied in with Google and Gmail that I like have to use it to be kept up with it. That's a little weird that I need to use this app to like be efficient.
Yeah, it's hard to like it's hard because we rely on technology so much
So
on our day
much.
to day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Sonny, what do you
I'm kind of like Gax. Like it, I, I don't have much to really hide. And so like,
Well,
you know,
before you go on, if me and you were having a WhatsApp conversation on some of the stuff we talk about, next time you're traveling to India,
yeah,
you may think you don't have
Yeah.
something to hide.
fair.
They interpret it in a different way.
And I'm looking at that through the Western being privileged, being in
Yeah.
Canada lens. Not to say that that can't happen here, but like in India, they're accusing you of these charges, then they're getting your data, they're going in. But like in your privacy agreements, like they can't hold that any of that shit against you unless you're like unless they're like warranted taking it as evidence, right? So like
That
unless
doesn't hold any weight in India, though. That doesn't
But
hold
he
any
does, yeah.
Yeah, in India,
I understand that's a very Western.
and we did move our group over to Signal from WhatsApp too. So
But but at the same time, it creeps. It's super creepy. Like we have the street or whatever the home pod, and the first couple times it was here, I can literally remember talking to Kayla and like we're talking about like what trip we're gonna go on, and then like go on Instagram, and I'm like.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts.
It's bizarre, and yeah, but at the same time, like I've also had it where it's like you'll be talking about like I can't forget something, can't forget something, can't forget something. I'm 100% gonna forget it, and then all of a sudden I'll like open Instagram at work and be like, oh yeah, like thanks, creepy Facebook, but it's yeah, I don't know. I fall somewhere between all of it. But you know the funny thing, and what's again like the irony of like how dependent we are on technology is like. The thing that seems to have struck the hardest nerve with like the West is like people being shut up on Twitter and shut up on Facebook and they're not allowed to use their social media, they're not allowed to use their voice. Forget about the fact that these 80-year-olds are getting tear gas beaten like with batons, but like this they didn't stand up at that point. But when they cut their
IG.
that's funny. But it's I mean, I think if anyone overthinks about it too much, you go crazy, man.
I mean, we are using these platforms to consume entertainment, right? Like I don't think any one of us really posts on social media much about our lives. Like you can't go onto Instagram and really know what happened in my life over the last few years. So it's like a free ride in a sense. Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, again,
creepy.
Arjun, you post stuff that the Indian government, like
they wouldn't like that. Yeah.
They picked up that Scottish junkie.
Totally.
He just literally had a
terrible.
human rights website, and that guy's not even born. He's born in Scotland, and he's been in there for like I don't know how many years. Like it's
that guy had great videos too on YouTube, like prior. I don't know if they've been taken down now or what, but I remember a few years ago watching some where he's explaining the history. And,
highlighting human rights violations.
It just highlighting exactly, just telling the story of what happened.
Yeah, like it's fucked, but I don't know. You can't do everything, but like, I switched from Google Chrome to Mozilla Firefox. I got like all these like little things. I'm just like fuck. It makes me sleep better at night. So fuck you.
You were using Firefox right now?
I use Firefox. It's a very secure browser, and then I've customized like I went to this website. It tells you that certain things you can change. And then like so when you're visiting website, it doesn't track your information. I like literally, and I like moved Facebook off my phone, so I only go onto it on the desktop because I guess Facebook is like super like it consumes everything. I'm just learning about all this shit now, but like switching over to like Signal, most of my conversation, I don't see like those ads like I used to like that creep me out like anymore. Like it's very like limited. It's like if I'm doing something specific, so I don't know. Like I said, I sleep better at night. So. So it's all
probably
good.
for a different reason, but
fucking Gakzz, boss got it. But yeah, anyways, that's I guess an update on the farmer situation, and I'm sure every time I don't think this thing's ending anytime soon, so we'll just keep something new will come up, and we'll just keep following it, and hopefully I don't know it doesn't turn violent and it results in something good for the people. So, but.
That's the biggest thing, as long as it doesn't turn violent.
Yeah, which fuck, man.
I mean, not to how it has in the past.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, like we said it before, like even today, Harman, like it took long enough, but Harman was on Global Edmonton today, like 5-minute segment. Like the West is starting to watch, right? So
that was Sonny not making that happen. His work.
Not saying they can't like do some covert shit, make people disappear, but it's going to be harder to like have like the wide scale stuff that we were all I think scared of in the beginning, like which is like you wake up and 5,000 people are gone. I'm not saying it can't happen or bad shit can't happen, but it's going to be harder now that people are starting to look at it. Like BBC, I've seen it on BBC, I've seen CNN, Economist says so like the frustration is it took forever, and in the beginning it was like they're telling the wrong side of the story or just not even the story. So I hope that this continues and that just the global eyes stay on it. And that's why it's, again, to me, it's important we continue to talk
Joe, on your first podcast, I think Harman was saying that these laws were passed in another part of India and it didn't bode well for farmers.
They use like 3 ordinances, and it's like so this was like established by the British Raj on how they passed these. So these bills didn't go through like the House or like there was no vote on it. They just literally.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, they just literally passed these like
It was
in
unconstitutional. It was like the first time they've done it in so many years. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, what's that, Sonny?
Like, do you mean like they did this in like Bihar, right? Like they.
Oh,
they,
no, like,
that's what he's saying.
they've done it in other states, and you look at Bihar now, like they've been like the people come to Punjab to work as migrant laborers now, right? And they've done it in other states. You see it. These farm laws introduced have impoverished the people. Like exactly what they said isn't going to happen is going to happen, and people lose their land. People have to go elsewhere for work. You know what I mean? They lose their land. They lose everything because there's no other jobs, and it's just been like centralized, and like big corporations have gone in. Like I don't know if you've seen, I can't remember where it was, but like the Adani group went in and just like essentially stole land from people, underpaid them. Like and those people can't do anything. The reason, like again, Punjab is a different animal, and that's where it started from. Right, like that's where the resistance started from. That's where the resistance always starts from.
They've been burnt already, right? Like, and Russell Brand brought this up in his video too, with those genetically modified cotton seeds that were supposed to enhance production. You're left with basically it's the same amount of cotton production, but now these super bugs that wreak havoc on other crops that you now need to use even stronger pesticides to control, which are seeping into your water system. So the farmers have been burnt by this already, right? Like.
So what's the viewpoint of these pro-India movements? What's their viewpoint? Like, what do these people think? Like, why are these ordinances good?
Pro-India, as in like what do you mean? Like who's pro-India?
BJP supporters. These car rallies for the anti.
Car rallies are stupid. That was like pro-India.
To me, it doesn't make any sense. What's their viewpoint? Like one of my buddies called it a All Lives Matter protest. I thought it was hilarious.
They're Hindu nationalists at the end of the day. They're fascists. Yeah. Anyone that supports Modi is a nut job, right? Like
so that's sort of my point. So they're just doing it based on religious views, right? They just wanna. I mean,
like, and they have like the RSS, like I can't remember what it's called, but like the Canadian wing. There's chapters in all these countries, and they mobilize their people. There's a lot like Silicon Valley in the tech space. There's a lot of these like. Modi it's crazy, and that's this other scary thing is there's a lot of Indians that work in this space, and like India's involved. Like it's obviously it goes on and on and on, but like like they're at the end of the day they're Modi supporters, and in my eyes you're a fascist. But just before we go on, like go on, Arjun.
Yeah, what's frustrating about that though is there's been a lot of people, I feel like, just to Gak's point, that if you ask them, they'll be like, no, we're not right wing, we're not fascist, but we can't throw India under the bus like this. We need to promote our country first. Farmers are promoting division. Like those people make no sense to me either. But
the majority, the farmers, they just don't have a voice. They're suppressed. But the majority of people, if you look at the ground, like there is no people say, oh, there's going to be Hindu-Sikh violence. There's Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims praying together. The ground reality is different than what the fucking Indian state. Like, so when you go back to the 80s and they're like Hindu-Sikh violence, there wasn't that. It's just that there wasn't social media. So that's the good thing about social media is like now you can see firsthand what's happening. Before the government had this narrative, we were our parents were forced to believe. That's the only thing they were hearing over and over. So they're like, oh, it must be true if the central government's saying, like, you know what I mean? Whereas now we have, we see fucked up shit. We're like, yo, that's not what's happening. Like, we know what's happening. Everyone has a camera. Everyone's a journalist now. So it's very different.
The other like messed up thing on it too is there's supposed to be democracy, right? Like, but the separation of church and state in India is like obvious bullshit. And not that I have anything against any like Hindus, any religion. I don't really give a shit. Do what you want to do. But when you actually read and you understand it, and you understand like where their belief system was derived and like the various castes, and you see that reflected in like his various beliefs. So you have like very elitist people that come from certain castes, like that will never see eye to eye with like Hindus that are protesting with Sikhs and Muslims that are of different castes. And at the end of the day, what is the underlying common theme? It's like going back to like a Hindu's national agenda, because in a lot of these people that hold those contrarian views, they're in a caste that's like, would be, hey, these things don't matter to them anyways, right? Like it's super like, and again, with all this attention on it, on India, hopefully people actually start to look, and because it's not really a democracy. It's like more like it's more like what China was in like the late 70s, 80s, like but because they're not an actual communist state, we're not sanctioning them yet. So it's just scary.
It's fucked. But just one last thing. What I was gonna say, like Arjun, you were talking about the Green Revolution in Punjab that made like Punjab one of the wealthiest states. Punjab was when Monsanto went in with the high growth seeds. Yeah. So like that Vandana Shiva, like that's what she talks about. She's like, when India there was a famine, so they essentially went to like Haryana and Punjab and were like, Monsanto came in, it was an opportunity, and they said, we need to feed the nation. So they incentivized them to feed the nation. They gave these seeds, didn't educate the farmers or anything what these seeds were. They got all these pesticides, all these chemicals. Nobody was educated. They just rushed it in there. The famine was gone. It was dealt with. But then what happened after, right? Like you said, those seeds, like rice and wheat, aren't even indigenous to Punjab, right? Like that's not what is indigenous to Punjab. So we're growing something that we wouldn't even normally be growing, and that requires water. And then that water also, like now you need more water for that because of all the chemicals and the pesticides, and all of our groundwater is being basically wasted on producing this wheat and this rice, and it's sucking Punjab dry. It's going to turn it into a desert. So like that green revolution has been like the worst thing to happen to Punjab, right? And the Indian government has done nothing. Like there's been the Swaminathan Commission, which like says like certain agriculture changes. Like the farmers were saying, we need changes, we need help. Like this is not sustainable over time. But the Indian government has ignored all that, and they just passed these. Like it's just.
This is the closest thing to like a proletarian like revolution, like the Marxian view of like in this like capitalist.
It's not even
against the bourgeoisie or like the really just because. The people are like people are dying, right? The water is getting contaminated in Punjab. The water levels are dropping at exponential rates that they've never been seen before, trying to feed a population that's growing at an exponential level. Like in what world is any of this sustainable, right? And I feel like a lot of farmers see that, and like that's where a lot of this desperation comes in, and like despair around like, okay, what the fuck does our future even look like? Is there even a future? Might as well kill it, like off ourselves, right? Like
suicide.
Try to attempt suicide. Like that's so like it's
10,000
such a vicious,
farmers.
Vicious
it's
cycle, man, circle.
That's why I mean, hopefully, shit changes here. But I guess whatever, we'll keep posting. That's all we can do, right? Keep chirping Modi on Signal so he can't come and get us.
that was a hefty update, but I guess it's been like 2 weeks since you've
but we talked about Bill Gates and
that was great, man. No,
I mean,
all encompassing.
I cover. I mean, but it's all connected, right? It's all connected. Sure. That's what I'm saying. Like you can't not pay attention because it could affect us, especially in this globalized world. But anyway, Sonny, you were I want to talk about that. You were on a podcast, 2 Mutts podcast, to talk about like diversity. You're on like a panel, talk about diversity in hockey, and I had to listen to that. That was pretty interesting. Do you want to tell us what that was about? And Gaks clearly didn't put himself on mute. I will.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. Josh called me up, and it was a good panel. Obviously, I played the game. Joe, you and I were teammates. Arjun followed us. Gaks before us. So we've all seen like diversity in hockey. We've seen it like work, and we've seen the bad of it. I'll never forget Joe getting called what I don't even remember what they called you, but the guy had to like write a letter and like massive suspension.
Kaki, Osama, you name it. That was right after 9/11 too.
And like before Joe, like
he was my middle name. I think I'm pretty sure when I was playing hockey.
I would get like like depending on which team, I would get like different chirps because like nobody really knew what I was, but they knew I wasn't. Something was off. So
Italian.
Especially if your dad's like walking you into the rink too. They're
Yeah.
Like, why is this white kid with this Punjabi guy?
Yeah. But like I liked it, and it was really good to like kind of measure where we've come from, where we can go. But like one of the things, and I've said this to lots of different people, different organizations, is like I think you have to be very careful with like the diversity agenda because it's important to promote growth of the game. It's important to promote to have these things for the right reasons. And some of the teams I've been involved with, when you wave the race flag too often, I think people will start to tune you out. And the reality is, yes, there are cases where players won't make a team because of the color of their skin. But in when you're coaching and you're trying to build high performing teams and the reality is more often than not, you're probably not making the team because you're not good enough. And that's changing now. And I think it's speeding up. Not enough in hockey because there's a lot of other forces at play. I'd like to see some of these people, some of these organizations around, and in the cases where it's a case where the guy should be there, it's you got a panel of scouts that are like, what the hell? That's when you got to step in. But at the end of the day, I think I agreed with Lully's comments. I agreed with Sean Bell's comments. Like, the NHL just doesn't have a plan for this. Like they don't market their players. They don't market the game. At the end of the day, you can't force diversity. Like when the average Punjabi kid, the average black kid, the average Asian kid would rather be the next Messi or LeBron or Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, you're trying to grow the game outside of Canada, and outside of Canada, nobody really cares, right? Like even in Canada, like that was the interesting thing is like the decline of registration, with the Raptors winning and being good, perennially. Basketball outpaces hockey registration. Soccer is now outpacing. Like, so you have it's crazy expensive to play the game. There are issues inherent to the game. It's boring. Like, it's a boring culture. There is probably systemic racism at the highest levels in the NHL. So at the end of the day, like with all of that, like it's kind of hard to push the diversity agenda. But I said on the thing, I said one thing I would be okay with is like if you bring someone forward, whether it's for a panel job, a GM job, whatever. It's no different than like the affirmative action policy in the States. Like, if everything else is equal, they all they were all AAA hockey players their entire life. Then they went on to the same scouting role in different clubs, and one happens to be black. Fuck the other 9 guys. Like, you've had the head start. You want to get diversity. It's important to do that. But the other thing is where I start to have a problem with diversity is like, when it's very obvious that the person that's got the job and it's purely a diversity play isn't any goddamn good at it, and it's like, it's unfortunate for the other people that want the job because it just becomes like this weird mess. But overall, I thought it was a well done podcast, and yeah, the NHL's got a lot of problems to figure out. And I think the biggest one is marketing, so that we don't have to have the conversations about diversity because people will want to come to it. But
well, I mean, that's a lot. You encompassed a lot of different things, right? Yeah. Okay, let's start with diversity. Let's start with Robert. Robert, you're a little older than all of us here, so you probably saw it. I guess it goes in order, right? Probably worse than I did. I saw it worse than Ghuman or whatever, me and Sonny, just based on it is getting better or being highlighted, but what is your view on diversity in hockey, in the sport in general, not just professionally, but playing minor hockey all the way up? What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, when I played, I don't know, people didn't know how to react. There was racism in the dressing room. Majority of players would just be quiet. It'd be awkward. If it was the opposing team, your teammates don't even know what to do. Like you're 8 years old, you're 10 years old, however old you are. Like no one's gonna drop the gloves. Like what are you gonna do? Referee doesn't know what to do. Like that's where we were at when I was playing. Like nobody really knew what to do. Like, hey, guy calls me a packy or makes some reference to the color of my skin. What's protocol? There really wasn't any. So you just sort of dealt with it. You put your head down and you fucking busted your ass, and hopefully it motivated you or whatever the case may be. But
so your kids play hockey, right? Like obviously you've gone through that. Now obviously how you react is going to be very different than obviously when you were whereas let's say your parents didn't have that, they don't come from a hockey background or they're immigrant parents, whereas now you've grown up in the system, you have more resources, more confident, more information. How does that change? And like is that diversity still, like, do you still see it as a major barrier?
I don't see it as big of a barrier, but I mean, I was born here in Canada. I mean, my family does, we do okay. I mean, hockey's very affordable for us. I'm on the ice with my kid. I'm an assistant coach. At some point, I'll probably be a coach. I can't really tolerate kids at 8, 9 years old. I don't have the patience. So once they're older, I'll move into coaching. But like, that's where you make changes. Like, people our age have to get into positions of power. You can't just be a parent in the stands and have no voice and expect to see any change. Even with the NHL, like, I mean, the NBA's changed because the players got involved. The NFL is changing because the players got involved. In the NHL, there's not enough colored players to make a change. So, I mean, to ask like Jujar to make a difference, I mean, that's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. The guy he's fringe level NHL player at the beginning of this year. He's on the taxi squad, and you want him to speak out on this issue? Like, this guy's looking for, he needs to get paid. I mean, he's busted his ass his whole life, and now he's at the NHL stage, and you can't expect him to bring this up because at the end of the day, he needs to, like, he worked his whole life to get to where he's at. How can he jeopardize that? Like, is he going to be Colin Kaepernick? Is Nike going to step in and sign him to a contract to fill his wallet up? Like, it's not going to happen. I mean, the way NHL changes is guys like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, they need to talk about, racism exists. It happened.
They're never going to.
Growing up. Yeah, but they're never going to. But that's the only way it's going to change. You got to go after those guys. Then you'll see change, because then the players will band together. Once they see guys like, I remember when Tyler Seguin, he knelt down in the national anthem in the playoffs last year. I thought that was huge. That was huge to me. Like, somebody else is stepping up. And, if that gained momentum, you might have seen a difference, but it didn't really seem like any of the other guys wanted to do that. But, like...
Don't you think, like, Jajar's, like, fourth line or whatever, but he's still, I don't know, in my opinion anyways, like, there's still a responsibility. He doesn't have to be overtly, but, like, it's just even, like, little things, how you say, like, educate, you still have to be active, because you still have to, if you're Sagan, I'm sure somebody's spoken to him or he got that information from somewhere. If you're not telling your story, ain't nobody gonna give a shit about your story or care to. Nobody got time for that. So, like, it falls on your shoulders to tell your story.
So look at Evander Kane. I mean, he's a higher level player. I mean, his voice falls on deaf ears. I mean,
I disagree. I wouldn't say deaf ears, man. Like, it's still you hear about it.
You hear about it, but there's no change. The NHL.
No, but it starts from somewhere, right? Like, you've got to, what's that thing, Sonny? You probably know these sayings. The seed that grows, whatever.
I think we're sort of at this, like, point in time where we're at a snapshot where it's too early to see all of this. Like, this has been ingrained in the culture for so many years, and I think we're just like starting to change the culture, and that's what needs to happen. Like, this isn't going to happen by, like, having one player speak up or, like, a few players, like, hold a rally or do something or promote something. Like, it's the entire culture that needs to change over time. So, like, promoting coaches of, like, Indigenous background, of colored background, right? But the only one thing quickly I want to say, in promoting diversity, I feel like sometimes we get a bit carried away, and it's not diversity and inclusion. We sometimes tend to promote segregation by trying to promote diversity and trying to include all these people. Like, a story stands out. University of Michigan at the start of this calendar year, like set up this BIPOC cafe to create like a safe space for Black and Indigenous people of color. But it became this like segregated area where like BIPOC people just went and
Who
like
set
they were
who set
like
it up?
the University of Michigan,
But
massive university
then there
institution.
you have a white structure of power creating this
Yeah,
for these
exactly,
people. It's
right?
different as
They're trying to promote like diversity and like, but they've completely misunderstood the point
sounds like
of like what it
segregating.
is. Yeah, exactly. They take this
Apartheid.
cafeteria, it's all yours, right? Don't come to our cafeteria. They came out and apologized and they got rid of it. They actually didn't go through with it. But like that's the only thing I feel like we need to be a bit careful about, like when we promote diversity in sport. Like don't just make it all about like a certain race or a certain group of people. Like it's about creating change in the overall culture so that when in the future, like you create this system where in the future, if X, Y, and Z, any Upna kid from any part of Canada or the US wants to play, he can enter the system and just be accepted. So that when some European prospect comes over, right, you're playing at a higher level, who's never played with like a Black person or an Indian person before, when that guy comes over, he's entering a culture where it's just accepted to play with people of culture. And that's it. That's the I think the end goal. We just got to get there somehow.
That's like one of the main things I was trying to get to those guys was like, right now, I don't know if this is an accurate stat. It sounds correct. There's like less than 4% of the league is BIPOC, right? Like, so to get a job in the NHL, whether you're in media, coaching, your best bet is having played in the NHL. So if you're already got 96% of the league ahead of you, it's hard to correct that change. And so as that number slides, you should start to see more people. But for me, like, and I said it on that show, is like, make it, if you want to see diversity, make it easy to play. Like, yeah, like we can afford to put our kids in, but a lot of people can't, right? Like, and it won't just be Punjabis that'll come in. You'll see more Black kids, you'll see more Asian kids, you'll see more Native kids, because if you remove that entry and then can actually connect to them, this is why you should play, you'll start to build it, and then you'll start to see those numbers change. Like, you think it's a coincidence that the NBA, like literally every other league, is the inverse of the NHL. It's probably like less than 30% Caucasian and 70% because there were less barriers to entry to play the game, and then you see way more people in color jobs, analyst jobs, because the numbers all align, right? So we have to help get them there, and some of that is the economics. The one comment too, and Gaks, you're kind of touching on it with Kara. Like Bell made a good point. Like there really hasn't been like since like Grant Fuhr, like a true and Aginla was probably the one for our generation. But there's not, like, in this era of social media where everything's connected, who's the only like true star that's of color that's like PK Subban, right? Like, and he's been shut up. He's been traded 3 times. He's got over 1 million Instagram followers, and they just try and silence him. So like there still is that cultural element that has to be about letting these guys have their personality so people want to play. And I think if you can address again those, like, that the backwards nature of the NHL marketing and then make it easy to play, that's when you're going to start to see it. So
yeah,
and Subban wasn't even talking
it's
about
like
Subban wasn't even talking about race or diversity. He was
I know.
just,
Who?
he's a flamboyant, like,
Yeah.
Subban wasn't
Oh
even
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
race or diversity. He's just a flamboyant individual. So
He just didn't
like,
fit the
I mean,
mold,
in
right?
my example, like, do you think JJ would have a job if he's speaking his story, speaking about diversity? You know, some would say it's even distraction to the team. Like, if he's a fringe level player, would he have a job next year? In my
No,
opinion,
you're
he wouldn't
right.
get signed.
You're right, but then like the other side is at some maybe if his teammates know what he's going through or what he's gone through is like maybe you have that like yeah, you're right. He could tomorrow. They could be like, and a very good chance in hockey they'll tell him to fuck off. But I mean, at some point somebody's got to do something, and even if he's
You want to see a movement started, and it
I think you know where the change comes. Like ultimately in these sports where you see change, like basketball, change comes top down. Like where you have people in power expressing opinions that are controversial or opinions that are going to bring about change.
But
So
Arjun,
what we
hold
got
on.
to realize is how to get people in hockey, just in hockey, into positions of power. So one, how do we get more like BIPOC people into the NHL as players, right? So if in Edmonton, if you break it down, this is just a quick thought. It's the kids whose parents can afford SSAC, MLAC, CAC, right? Who can
Rich
afford
kids.
that extra training, the rich kids who go. So why is hockey in Edmonton, why is Edmonton minor hockey like funded like that? Why is it divided up like that? Should that funding money not go to like the government? Shouldn't taxpayer money maybe go to funding hockey programs in schools? Because we know every kid's going to go to school, right? Not every kid's going to be able to play SSAC, MLAC, but there's a higher likelihood kids are going to go to high school or they're going to go to junior high. So why not take that money, put it into areas that are more accessible to more kids, right? Like sort of the US, their football programs, granted it's a private system, but just sort of the conceptual model is built up around like education and your collegiate, your sports sort of with that, you know? I don't know. It's just an idea. I don't know if we've ever thought about that.
I actually said something similar. Like I did the American comparison. Like the U.S. is vast, like very quickly closing the gap on Canada, U.S. Some years they're better. Why? Because the government will put money into sport, right? Like it matters, and so the USHL, like those are all programs that are funded. Yeah, there's wealthy people in it, but they still make it easier to play. Our government, you can go to the Olympics in Canada. You can win 5 gold medals for this country, be like the greatest athlete of all time, and they'll still get you a job at Tim Hortons or Home Depot. Like we do nothing to support athletics, right? And like again, we already know like you guys, like you two have kids already. You see it. Skates cost several $100s just to get the shit, like just to put the equipment on them for the average and again, we can't think like we've done well. Like the average family in Edmonton still has like a $60,000 household income, right? So when the majority of the people are doing that, how are you supposed to get them the equipment? How are you supposed to someone's got to take time off work to get them to the hockey like this and all the extra stuff. Like it costs. And that's what I was saying. Like, if you remove those barriers, you make it easier, you will see the diversity happen. Again, why is the NBA, MLB, MLS, why is every other sport so dominated by colored people? Because they were able to play through their schools. They were able to play relatively inexpensive. Those barriers did not exist, right? And so that, again, you got to go to the owners. You have to find a way to explain to them that if you can break this down and you can get India invested, you get China invested, not only will you solve the diversity issue, but you'll grow your market. But again, you
need ice.
Yeah,
right? That's a limiting factor in hockey.
100%.
So I don't know. I guess the sport in and of itself is selective, right? What I like though is that diversity is being promoted. We are now seeing more players than ever. So I think the trend is in the right direction, but we shouldn't try to take it into our hands and to, I don't know, in my opinion, to completely change the game. I don't know. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Like I said before, I feel like we're at this snapshot and we're trying to understand what the trend is going to be, you know?
My opinion on that is you have to take it into your own hands because, and this whole change, even the fact that we're at this point is because people have taken it into their own hands because
they're wanting, they're active, right?
And that comes down to growing up here, having more access to information, having more knowledge, having, you grow up school here, so your earnings are better than maybe your parents, whatever it is, right? You have more resources, and that gives you essentially power to do something. In my opinion, you have to. For Jajar, I don't need him running around going insane, but what he should be doing, in my opinion, is in his local, where he's from Surrey, maybe doing camps or participating, and then telling his story. Just having little kids see, there's a brown kid playing, right? He's a fourth liner, so he has a lot
Change
to
happens,
do something
down,
that, where even him posting now on the farmers' protest, I thought that it was finally. Which is good to see. And then they talked about it, and I think he got a couple points that game. So it was that was huge. So yeah, I don't know. It's
JJ having a summer camp in Vancouver is a excellent idea. That's growing
right?
the game. That would draw a lot of attention. I bet you would get
tons of kids.
On it as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
You get tons of kids because people in Surrey and that Lower Mainland, they have the resources. You're seeing there's so many Punjabi kids playing there, man. and
That
you're
camp
gonna
would sell out in 10 seconds.
yeah, like you're gonna see.
Right away.
I think in the next like 10 to 20 years, you're gonna see an influx. Maybe they don't get superstar status, but you're gonna see more and more Punjabi players coming in. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But
and that will be a big
JJ,
thing.
if
Like,
you're listening, call Joe Slunga to be your business manager. Set up the camps for you.
yeah,
But
we're gonna
even
start
just us being able to skate with our kids is like such a huge advantage.
massive.
We didn't really have, like, our parents tried their best.
My dad doesn't know
But,
what offside is till this day, and he's watched like every one of my games. Like, dude,
It's
even
pretty
that
hilarious
is
because
huge.
I think on the ice, like I'm pretty vocal. Like I kind of yell at the kids, like my dad probably used to yell at me from the stands. But like, it seems like some of the other coaches they don't want to like. Everyone's so sensitive these days. Like some people are so nice to the kids, and I'm always like, no, man, let's move. Like move faster. I know you can move faster. Like. But like, you know, that's just the era we're living in. Everyone's so sensitive. Like no one wants to say something to somebody else's kid in case, he has to hear it from their parents. Like it makes no sense. Like we're playing fucking sports. Like you say whatever the hell you want. Like motivate the kid.
But your kid having you there, that's like I think that's a huge advantage. Like I would like to be involved in my kid playing, like, because I think you have to be to give him that.
You have to. Yeah,
him or her that advantage. But no, that's solid. Gaks is gonna coach when the Blackhawks return, and he's no longer able to play. He's gonna be our coach.
That's so a long time away, buddy. It's a long time.
Long time. This guy's Tom Brady, man. He ain't retiring.
Never.
What's Sonny? What's happening with give us an update on the quick update on the Oilers, man. I haven't really been following it so much, but I guess you guys all have. Gaks, you were watching the Flames back to back. What's going on here?
So much better than them. Oh my god.
I mean, I've always thought the two biggest things I've thought is it made no sense to me that this team would puck watch so much in the defensive zone, because that's shit that you learn so early in life that it would boggle my mind how many times that we would get caught puck watching and somebody would slip behind who's ever covering. If McDavid's covering the centerman, McDavid looks at the puck and the centerman's gone. They pass it in front, the guy scores. Or, Nurse slides down low because the other D-man lost his player, but you don't need to go behind the net in the corner. You can't score from there. Just wait until your unit gets back together and just fucking hold your
they're just not on the same page, right? Like, I think that's a product of...
I see this very simple hockey. It makes no sense. And then, like, pucks to the net. D-men are finding lanes, and they're putting wrist shots to the net, slap shots, any lane, put it on the net. And we lost that Blackhawks series because of that, and it seems like we're doing it now a lot better. Bouchard's shooting, and I mean, Barry, they told Barry to start shooting. He was a fucking passing pylon.
Nurse is leading
games.
all defensemen. Nurse is leading all defensemen in goals too, man. Like,
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I didn't know that, man. That's crazy.
So as long as you see the goalie that have over 900 save percentage this year, because save percentages come down, but as long as the goalies can, fight each other for the number one job, I mean, I think we'll be.
So are we at the midway point yet, or because how many games this season? 54.
Yeah, 50. Yeah. I don't think we're halfway yet, but like for me, it was like, everything Gaks said, like they shouldn't make the mistakes they do. Someone said that like the mistakes they were making are not coaching mistakes. Like you can't coach effort, and so I think their effort has been more consistent. And then I feel like there's less passengers. Like, and when you have Draisaitl and McDavid, it would be hard to not watch. But like the last few games, like the depth scoring has shown up, right? Like Kara Chason has a couple now. Haas put it in like the game winner the other day. And our start wasn't great, but I think if we had Smith at least 3 of those games, we probably win. Even if you have Koskinen start, because even like a Carey Price, Carter Hart, like these top echelon goalies, they all have bad games. We see it with like even Parm. Like if he's having an off game.
Shots fired. Ranger P, man. He's getting pegged on this one.
You're getting unfollowed.
Yeah.
But if you have a quality backup, and which like 90% of our Hawks games we don't have a second goalie. But like if they let in a soft one, you're gonna let them battle through it. If they let in the next one that's soft, you pull them. Right? Like, and you still have a chance to win that game. So I remember that Calgary game where literally everything went straight through him, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to put in Stuart Skinner? Like,
Koskinen was exhausted, right? Like, at that point, he had played so many games. So I don't know how we were sort of talking about this in one WhatsApp group, but it's not like these two old goalies are even fighting for the number one spot. It's like they're just both playing enough to make it through the season. So
yeah, 100%.
Challenge each other, but they're more just giving the other guy a rest so he can go and play in like a few games.
But that's what, but if you're getting constantly challenged, then you're more likely to be more focused and more driven to be at your best at all times.
Like the taxi squad of forwards that travels with the team, like these guys would be practicing with the AHL team. And when you're with the AHL team, no one's at your practice. You're like chilling. You're not really giving it your all. Because of COVID, there's more guys now allowed to go skate with the Oilers, and these guys that would be with the AHL team are now skating with the NHL team. So they're practicing hard. It's like these fringe guys going the hardest at practice, and they keep the actual like roster guys accountable because there's competition at practice, and they like actually go hard. Like it's been sick.
But the other thing is, I don't think like typically if you look at majority of the good teams, I think their goalie wins them one game out of every like 5-6 games, in my opinion. The goalie's the first star of the game. Koskinen did not win us any game in the first 10 or 11 games that he played. It was either we fucking just scored more than the other team, or the other team just didn't show up, and there wasn't that many shots put on Koski. But he didn't win us one game, and like I mean he's overplayed, but I mean we could have used a win or two there, like at least 1 out of 10. Like come on, there's got to be something.
Long term, the goaltending is like right now. It's obvious that if it's not already, it's going to become the biggest issue, right? Like if you got 5 of the 6 and 5 of your top 6 figured out pretty soundly. Your defense, which has been a laughingstock for a long time, is actually now like you're seeing some depth. Like your number 1 defenseman's out this year, and you've got guys playing amazing. Can we get through this year with those two? Yeah, probably. Like they'll do a good job. But then what happens? Like, you look at the teams that win cups and then win cups like on a consistent basis. They have a guy they can steal you, 2-3 games here and there. And so we were talking about this the other day. It's like, at what point do you like? And I don't know that Ken Holland has ever done this because do you become willing to look at your defensive depth, and do you look at a guy like Ethan Bear who's hurt right now? Do you start to think like throw Ethan Bear, maybe even Broberg, like maybe a first pick, like vastly overpay for a young stud goalie right now, and just because you have enough assets to carry you through probably the next 3-4 year window, and then you still have that goaltender, like what would you trade?
I was having this conversation last night. You're talking about next year. What happens at trade deadline? Like I think like
move Nooch for
people
sure.
I was talking to, they're like, we need a goalie this year. Like what if we giving up Broberg in our first and maybe even more for Fleury for the next 2 years? Fleury's paying sick right now, so you have him for the rest of this year and next year. Because what's our window at the end of the day? Can you waste this year? Like if we had a sick goalie right now, man.
Well, with today's news, so Slater Cuckoo's out for the rest of the year with his clavicle injury. So we're down a defenseman now too.
They recalled
so
that.
I mean,
but
injuries.
We're deep on D right now.
Yeah,
we're super deep on D right now.
But and so like Anaheim's GM came out and said that John Gibson is like untradeable, and all GMs say that until Ken Holland shows up and says, okay, like we're going to give you Nugent Hopkins, Broberg, Jones, Bear, a first and a conditional second.
Oh, hell no.
Man.
You're not
Loyalty, hey?
You don't say just get Gibson. You'd have to you get Gibson and like there'd be, but you lose. You have
what you're saying is you got to earn. You can generate interest even if someone says.
What he's saying is those guys are not his clients. Clearly,
what I'm saying, we've all been PBHL captains. What I'm saying is you have to be willing to lose the trade. Like to like if you're gonna get the main asset, which is the goaltender, and you're gonna give up guys that like maybe they turn out to be studs, maybe they don't. But if Gibson comes in right now and you lose these marquee players, but you win, look at what happened. Like when DeRozan got traded, like non-basketball fans like all freaked out because he's the franchise. Kawhi comes in, they win a championship 1 year. Nobody flinched.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
know. Hockey's crazy, man. These guys are playing amazing right now. Like it's good to see.
But the thing is, we've overpaid on so many deals. Like we've taken in the ass on so many deals. I mean,
why do we only sign really old goalies?
If we can get a goalie out of this thing, let's do it. Like who cares?
Yeah.
We need a goal.
Yeah, we need a goalie. Like the goalie that I would actually go after because of how well Fleury is playing is what's his name, the laner, like him, or like there's him and then the 2 Columbus goalies that like. But again,
Elvis and the other guy,
Corpusalo. And again, not that the guys like they've played well this year. Like obviously, Koskinen just got tired, but again, you're like we talk about the window. If McDavid and Draisaitl are happy and want to stay here for the next day, like as long as they're playing like they are right now, your window is till they like regress. But the window becomes a lot shorter if they get pissed off after another year of mediocrity and say we want out, right? Like, so that's why, like, if it was me, I would be like, hey, like, what can get us to the conference finals this year? And in my opinion, the answer is a goalie. Like,
goalie. It's a goalie.
But again, and that's why I said you have to overpay. Like,
is so bananas too, man. Like these teams are so front loaded. Like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton. Like the offense is so high. Like I think any goalie would really get lit up for the next like 30 games. Too. That's something.
I think they're just. So one of my buddies sent this stat out. Like Montreal's like under 500 if you take out their Vancouver games or their Ottawa games. I can't remember one of the 2 teams.
Yeah, they
just dominated one of the teams. Yeah, Toronto, in my opinion, is going to get rolled once the playoffs start. Once they move over and play like. If they're playing in the Eastern Conference squads, they'd be getting rolled.
Does it go back to like the actual conferences?
I think it's pretty late, right? Like
you can make it
up if you come out of this division.
Yeah, there. Like I read this thing that you can win the Stanley Cup this year by playing 8 teams. So like if you come out of the North, you've played 6 teams all year, and then you would play 1 crossover game in the semis. So that's your 7th. And then you would play in the finals. Like that's how.
Oh, shit.
So like there's like, but I agree with Gaks. Like if they draw Boston, I bet the farm on Boston. Like Toronto's not going to beat them. Like
I would love to see that right now. That's actually what I miss about the regular format. What I don't like about these divisions is that like I would love to see a Boston Toronto game, or even Toronto Tampa would be like pretty sick right now.
NHL's all matchups.
In Vegas,
We match up well against Toronto, in my opinion. We have a tough time with like Montreal. I don't know. Like we have a tough time dealing with a good goalie and good squad of D-men. Like Montreal's got pretty good
D-men who are willing to shoot the puck through.
So how far do we
lanes and block shots?
How far do we? What's the prediction? How fucking far are we going? Because only buddy, Mr. Loyalty over here, fucking every year thinks we're going to the finals.
I think we make it to like. I think we're playoffs, and I think we go second round of the North finals. Like it's, but
second round 50-50. Yeah, second round's a coin flip in my opinion.
Yeah, then I don't know. Like it's. Before we leave the goaltender talk, I had one thing I wrote down. I want to say, like, the other thing is, like, have you guys ever noticed how every goalie that leaves Edmonton becomes good?
Yeah,
like
every player almost.
Like, honest to God, I have no idea how we have not changed our goaltending coach. Like, you look at these teams, like look at the Islanders, look at Columbus, look at Nashville. Like, it's these 3 or 4 teams where like they always have good goalies, and what do they have in common? They have somewhere in the background unbelievable goaltending coaches, and most of them come as like a package deal. Like Barry Trotz takes his guy everywhere, and wherever Barry Trotz goes, those goalies are sick, and whenever they leave, they regress. And then it just blows my mind. Sorry.
Sorry, what I would say to that is it's the defensive system, because
Part of it.
I've seen this. Like if you watch Montreal play,
Yeah.
their D-men make stupid ass moves, but Carey Price bails them out. And I mean, so then people don't talk about how bad the D-men are, because Carey Price is bailing them out, and vice versa. When you have like sometimes our goalies are just left out to dry. Like I don't care who's
Yeah.
in net for us. Some of the shit that we've seen over the last, I don't know, like what do you want to call it, 10 years? Like there's
What's
just
that guy's
people
name?
left
Remember
open.
Jacques? Yeah, like I'm talking about system that Jacques Lemaire guy in Minnesota, like that system he implemented, like where they just trapped all the
Yeah,
time.
or come on, Ghuman. That's the most
Yeah,
boring shit ever.
yeah, exactly. But their goalies had the best stats every season, year after year. So because of the
Devils.
system,
Montreal,
yeah,
sorry.
all these teams. So when you're in the north and you're playing on a line with McDavid, you have Darnell Nurse up on the fourth. Like it's wheeling and dealing. Like look at Markstrom. He was a stud. Calgary thought they'd get him and they'd be set. The guy's getting lit up this year. I have him on my side.
That's why I think
It's a
goalies. I don't know. Like I haven't been following it too much, so I can't really. But like in my opinion, goalies are like you just need to find one that just catches fire for the playoff run, and you're gonna get far. Like that's literally it. And then if you can play a half decent system in front of them, and just I don't know, it's how many like random goalies that like just became stars in the playoffs, right? There's so many.
It was the one position we couldn't draft, and therefore we still suck at it. Everything else we addressed with the draft because we sucked for so
Can't draft a
long.
goalie first overall,
Can't
right?
draft a goalie. That's the issue. So now we got to
Not
develop
first
one.
overall.
Okay, yo, question for you guys before we'll talk about one other thing after this. But like, if we shit the bed this year, if you're McDavid, how long before you're like, get me the fuck out of here? Because I would have been gone if I'm McDavid, and I wasn't a good old Canadian boy. I'd be fucking like, yo.
I think you have this year and next. Like you might get 2 more years just because of how fucked up COVID has been and how weird the seasons have been. If this was a normal year and this was an 82 game season and we missed playoffs, we underperform, you got 1 year left. And where it's like where he starts to like, he knows. I mean, how do you not know you're the best player in the world by like a mile?
Shot, yeah.
Like everyone's so hard for Matthews yesterday because he scores 3 goals and then he goes out, or he didn't even get a hat trick. Then he gets 3 goals, 2 assists, right? Like, and so you're aware of those things, but at the same time, in this case, luckily, the culture of hockey is he doesn't want to be that guy, right? Like nobody wants to be that guy, and then, but you can't blame the guy. But I would say you got at least 1 more full season where we're on an upward trajectory, and all it takes is like if they go deep, they win a cup. They're probably not. They're not going to leave. Like if they can see that they can do this time and time again. Like but we got to get there. So
I think it's situational. Like that's exactly it, right? Like if it's like a sick playoff run, the city's bumping, the team's giving it their all, and they lose in the second, third round, then he's not leaving. But if it was that bullshit we saw against Chicago, where the team's not even trying, the coach is out to lunch, like. Who knew what was happening with the line combinations, right? And McDavid starts feeling like we're wasting his time here. We don't really care about him, and like I think things are gonna turn fast, and he's gonna be like, "Get me the fuck out of here." But yeah, I think it just depends on the hockey we see.
Robert.
Yeah, I don't see him asking for a trade. I don't think he's that type of
No,
player.
but what would if you're in McDavid's shoes? What would you do? That's my question.
No. So I don't think I could leave either. Just like the camaraderie you have, like he's built relationships. I mean, if he's quitting on the team, then we have a massive problem, which we already have. We just don't recognize it. But I mean, we've been playing well the last 2 weeks. 10 games into this season, I was literally like, we should just package McDavid and get a boatload of assets and start this thing over again. Keep Dry as your number one because you'll get way more for McDavid. But we were brutal. It was like, how many more years can we put up with this? Like, it makes no sense. So like, I don't see him asking for a trade. I can't see it happening.
Right,
he's not the type of guy. Like I can't see him doing that.
He's a good old Canadian boy. That's why.
They've got some roots here too now. Like her business is like set up here. Like she's doing pretty well. Like So I mean, not to say that she can't do that anywhere else, but
All right. Well, but Sonny, now the biggest question: when do you fucking decide that loyalty #loyalty? Like, when do you stop buying fucking everything the Oilers sell? Like,
Never.
come on.
when I can't afford it anymore.
Forget
Right.
about
But-
buying. He's making apparel for the Oilers. He's
Yeah.
making apparel. Where's that denim jacket? Get that denim jacket on.
Oh, I'll grab it in a minute.
Oh yeah, I remember that thing.
But I did. I think I'm my new rule moving forward is I'll only buy the alternate jersey, and I'm not going to put players' names on them anymore. That was my promise I made. I'm just like looking at my closet. I'm like, man, why do I have like an Ethan Morrow jersey? like
Yo, that's ridiculous. Well, fuck. Let's just before we wrap up here, Sonny, you wanted to touch on like fucking COVID and the effects it has on people losing their shit, just mental, I guess, having mental related issues or whatever you call it. Fuck, having a tough time. You were talking about that earlier.
Well, I think like we have the doctor on, so he probably speak to it better. It's just like I think obviously we're seeing a lot more stuff on our social feeds. We're not seeing people as much, and we've had a couple personal incidents with like friends, clients, where you can tell that this is getting hard, and anyone that says it hasn't been is full of shit, right? Like it's literally been a year, and for a lot of people, talking like this has been the extent of it, and yeah, of course that's going to take the toll on your psyche, and it's just like I think it's important to just have some self-awareness and I guess some humility too, and it's if something does feel like it might be a problem or wrong, then you don't got to talk to me or you, but there's people to talk to about it, because I think we all know that it's not just in our community. I think it's definitely with men in general. It's an issue that's starting to get more light, but again, I'm starting to worry the longer that this pandemic goes on and the more stuff we're seeing. So I don't know if you've seen anything in the hospitals and stuff, Arj, but that was literally all I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of stuff going on in the hospitals. I mean, you basically nailed it on the head. Like, by no means am I a COVID specialist or anything, but it's about getting through this time. Like, it's a shitty time, right? Like, people are suffering, and I think that's what you're bringing light to essentially in this situation. Like, people's jobs are suffering, the economy is suffering, people's health is suffering, people are getting sick from COVID, and there's we're just more aware of sort of what's been going on around us. And I think it's okay to recognize that this is just a really shitty time for everyone. And yeah, if you have a supports a circle, reach out and be heard, and know that it's okay to feel like you're overwhelmed at this time, but get help for it and seek out support.
Can I call you, Dr. Arjun?
Yeah, anytime, man. We do a virtual chat. We play virtual Catan.
You can play virtual Catan? I'd be down to play virtual Catan.
Man, there's Catan online. It's sick. It's pretty sweet too. They repaired a lot of the glitches. I think a lot of people downloaded it, so I've been playing it for like a few years. But like over the last 6 months, they like upgraded the shit out of it. It's like so cool, so many pieces. I was like, I wonder if a lot of people just downloaded the game over COVID and they like made me and decided to like upgrade it.
I'll have to take you up on that. Gaks, what are you seeing, man? Fuck.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's people stuck in their homes, so I mean, you gotta have a good home life. Like, oh my god, jeez.
Yeah,
you gotta have a good home life. I mean, I think the biggest issue is, I mean, people that probably weren't happy at home are having a tough time adjusting to being at home all the time, and you see that with relationships with your spouses and whatnot. Me and my wife have talked about it. Like, there's definitely relationships out there where a husband and wife are probably just going through the motions and they're not really seeing each other. They're probably both busy with work, kids. They barely have to hang out, and now they're in a situation where they have to hang out. So I mean, issues can definitely arise.
and they're realizing we don't actually fucking like each other.
Yeah, but now they can't go anywhere anymore, right? Like, I mean, that's just the reality. And I mean, you'd see with you would hear like domestic violence cases are on the rise, and you'd hear stories about kids need to be at school because they see violence at home, so school's like an outlet for them. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just hopefully it's like once in a lifetime thing that we're seeing here, and we don't have to go through this again. But this podcast, Zoom calls, any way you can connect with your friends is it's super healthy, and you just got to put in more effort, find different ways to connect with people.
Yeah, it's that's this whole podcast just as a hangout, which is pretty fucking good. But yeah, but I think there's all the difficult things that you mentioned. It's a good opportunity also for people to fucking realize, certain, because it leaves the people that are close with you or that you have a connection with, you still you work to maintain those relationships. So, I mean, you can't, before you realize, there's a lot of people, they're in your life, but you maybe spent more time on them than you needed to, and you're neglecting other things, and you realize, I didn't need to. Not saying that person's a bad person, but, it's I should have spent more time on this, and it helps you realize, too. So, yeah, there's a lot of shit, but, I mean, I guess you can only try to take away, there's not much else we can do, except for, take away the positives, I guess, right? What's the other option?
It puts a lot of things into perspective. But
dude, I've been getting into podcasts and on audiobooks. Highly recommend it. I just did the David Goggins audio book on Audible. Unbelievable! There's just, there's time that you can do things, that you have so much time that you can do so many different things that you normally didn't have time for.
Wouldn't have do. Yeah, you get to realize what you're like. I like things that I didn't know I liked, because you're like, what the fuck?
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And then, so it's it's good chat, boys. Today we I got to hang out. I got to see Robert here, have a discussion. First time on the pod. Sonny's wearing his shitty ass Oilers biker jacket, whatever the fuck that is.
Go show it off. Tell us where we can buy it. Tell us.
Where can we buy it?
The website.
It's impossible. It's a one of a kind.
Did you make that custom?
I had the patches. They've just been sitting in drawers for I don't even know where they came from, to be honest. Over the years, and then I did destroy 2 of my jerseys for the back of it because I had an abundance of patches.
And everyone has patches in their house, right? I got lots of patches.
Just lying in my drawers.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways. And then, so then obviously you guys know what I do for work. So I just went in the back and I was like, "Hey, Tony, my
can
man."
You do this?
And he literally was like, "Yeah, okay." And so they did it. I've literally had guys at at the Flames games and stuff that are smashed that are like, "I'll give you $1,000 cash right now," and I'm like, just nah, it's fine. Whatever.
Fuck, all good. You're a big supporter of the Oilers, so the city thanks you. The Oilers thank you. Jujar thanks you. Everyone thanks you. I guess we'll wrap this up, boys. Good session.
Thanks for
Sonny,
having us, man.
Oh, thanks for coming, man. Always a pleasure, Dr. Ghuman. Robert, we'll get you on hopefully again soon. Sonny, sure. you have you have an article coming out on Baaz news org that you did regarding related to the farmers' protests, so that should be coming out in a day or two.
Congrats, Sonny. Good work.
Thank you.
Sonny been putting in the work, so that should be a good read. We'll share it, like it, subscribe, all that good stuff. But yeah, all right, boys, good sesh. I'm gonna stop the recording. Remember, don't shut off.